Hey Jess, how are you today?
I am great. I'm excited to be here.
Great, great. I am also super happy to have you here with us. And guys, we are going to be talking today all about you being able to know what you need to know when hiring a web designer. Kind of give us a glimpse of where your business is now, like where you're geographically located and who are the clients that you love serving.
Yeah, so I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I work with people all over the world. I actually don't often work with anybody in Georgia, ironically. I work with everyone. And I mostly work with service-based business owners, so people who are B2B or, serving, even if it's not B2B, but they just work with clients one-on-one. And I really, really focus on those in the health and wellness industry. So, dietitians, personal trainers, yoga teachers, those kinds of things. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And I work a lot one to one, just building websites, auditing websites, that kind of stuff. But I also have a membership where I help teach people about how to manage their website.
That's awesome. So, what I love, and the reason I wanted to have this conversation on the podcast is so many business owners I know have a website and they really don't either pay a lot of attention to it. And they come to this revelation, whether it's because they've gone to a conference or they've gone to some trainings, and they want to kind of like up level and they want maybe their current
Hmm.
website that might in some ways may feel outdated. And I would say a lot of the people that I am personally serving and working with already have a website, but maybe there's someone listening right now who's kind of going for that first website and they would like to learn from past mistakes and they want to be able to go into some of those conversations more equipped, maybe even more prepared. So, the conversation I would love to have with you today is really what are some things that our listeners need to know about that could help them out when they're actually in that process of hiring a web designer. So I don't know how you want to kind of go at this, but even if you can share with us questions that they should be asking potential web designers as they're maybe interviewing or looking to hire people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought of some things that we should be asking that when you're looking to hire a web designer.
Awesome.
The first thing I would not particularly ask is, hey, have you worked with, a social media manager before? Like there are certain things that maybe like, hey, if you're a realtor, like you may want to ask, like, have you worked with a realtor before? But most of the time, I don't think that's a great question because it's kind of like asking a plumber, like, have you fixed this particular type of sink before? Well, like most sinks are kind of the same. Like there might be a slightly different setup, but for the most part, a website is a website. And so there are a few exceptions to that, but for the most part, I don't think you should worry about like, have you worked with a social media manager before? Have you worked with a dog trainer before? Whatever your business is, I
Right.
don't think that's a major factor that we need to take into consideration. What
Okay.
I would ask is, number one, what platforms do they work with? Because I believe that you should really choose someone that works with platforms that you are comfortable with or know about. And I know there are some people who are like, well, I literally don't know anything about the platforms. But if I think sometimes it can be dangerous if you approach a web designer, you're like, hey, I'm interested in getting a website done. And they're like, I only work with Squarespace. I only work with WordPress. And yes, I believe in niching down, and I only work with Squarespace and WordPress. But that's because those are the two most reputable. But if I think it's pigeonholing you, if they're like, the only option is Squarespace, that's it. And I think that can be a little dangerous because then you get stuck with potentially a platform that doesn't actually serve your needs or that is easy for you to use and understand or anything like that. So I think ideally if you can find someone who at least has 2 or 3 platforms that they work with. I think that would be a better idea, because then they can help walk you through, okay, so what do you want your website to do? What functionality are you looking for? What, how tech savvy are you? Are you going to be managing it yourself? Do you want help managing it? They can kind of walk you through, okay, so based on these answers, this platform might be better. So that's the first thing, is what platforms. The next thing that I would ask is, do they do any calls with you? Some web designers don't do any calls. Some do a ton of calls. So I think asking, like, when are we going to, do you do calls? If you do, how often? What are those calls for? What are they, what's the structure? For me, like, I typically do a consult call just to see, like, are we a good fit? And then we have a strategy call before we get started on the actual project. And that's where we deep dive into all the things. Some designers do more calls than that, some do less. So what are you comfortable with? Do you even care if they have calls? Do you want more calls? Like, understanding what's going to be included in that process of working with them. Other really important thing is, do you get to give feedback? Like, and how much feedback? When do you get to give that feedback? Are they going to build the entire site? You get 6 edits and that's it, and then your site's launched. Like, when do you get to give feedback? What does that feedback process look like? That kind of thing. So again, just an example, my clients get 3 rounds of feedback, and they get as many edits as they want in each round. Like, it's not like, okay, you get 3 things you want to edit in each round. So again, every designer is different, but are you comfortable with only 1 round of feedback? Or are you like, I don't care. I only want 1 round. Like, I trust you to make it. I don't care how many edits there are, So being aware of that. And then really, really important is, what if you need help in the future? Like, are they managing your website and you have to pay them hosting, and so they do all the updates for you? If they do manage it and they do all the updates for you, what does that cost? What's the turnaround time? What's the fee for the updates? Is there a limit on the updates? What does that look like? And especially, I think, just a kind of side question to add on to that, if they do manage your hosting and manage your website fully for you, ask them what their plans are. And this is this is a very out of left field question, what do they have in place in case they pass away or their business goes out of business? Like, what's their plan? I literally had a client several years ago, and I was like, hey, we're ready to connect your domain. We're ready to launch. And they were like, so my last designer managed my domain, like, it was in their account, and they died. So, like, how do I get my domain? And that is a really difficult situation to be in. So I personally do not manage any of my clients. Like, all of their hosting and domains are in their own email, in their account, for that very reason, because I don't want, if something happens to me, I don't want my clients to be left up, like, they can't, log into their website or something like that. So if you're like, I do want them to manage it, that's great. Let them manage it. But then ask them, like, what plans do they have in place if something happens to them? Like, that's a really, really important question to ask. So that's kind of the 4 or 5 questions that I would recommend asking before deciding on a web designer, and kind of seeing, like, what that experience is like and how much you get hands-on help, or how much you get to actually touch your own website if you want to, that is.
So can we talk about money?
Yeah.
So when people need a website, we know, and if you haven't looked into websites in a while, there are all types of web designers that are out there. And there's everything from, I can make you a 2-page website for this amount of money, to websites that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and are wildly complicated and expensive. So when we're talking as business owners, maybe someone listening is a service-based business, maybe they have a church, maybe they have a very wildly successful business, and they genuinely want a web designer that's solid, that knows what they're doing, and they can have like a professionally quality website. Can you just touch on, Jess, when someone is, the question of what's your budget? Some business owners kind of like, that makes different people feel different things. So I guess I
Yeah.
want you as the web designer to talk to us from your perspective of what business owners just need to maybe take into account when we know that the amount of money that you can pay for a quality website is so varied, and really how
hmm
to even approach that conversation.
Yeah. So I think you really have to remember that your website is often the first impression that people have of you. It's either your social media or your website. And often, if they go to your social media first, then they're going to your website. So I don't want you to undervalue the importance of a website. It is difficult because there's such a wide range of investment. I think you have to take in, remember that people live different places, so cost of living is different. Years of experience is also a factor. There's also one of the biggest differences is it a custom coded website? That's going to be a lot bigger of an investment if it's custom coded and created, which is also going to most likely be more difficult to also manage on your end. You'll likely have to outsource all of your edits to them, so that's an additional investment in the future. But yeah, that's the biggest difference is, custom coded versus some kind of template, or it's drag and drop or something like that. I would at the very least just say, don't, this is my very personal opinion. You need to at least expect to spend $1,000 at the very least. And that is, if you're spending less than $2,000, like, that's someone who's likely newer, or you're getting like a 1 to 2 page website. That's not going to be a full 10-page website with all the bells and whistles. So at the very least, expect at least $1,000. That's going to be one of those investments. But also keep in mind that a lot of designers will do payment plans, and stuff like that. So even if you see a price tag on someone's website, or and you're like, oh, that website costs X amount, keep in mind that they may offer like custom pricing based on like, oh, you only have this amount of pages, or this or that, or they might offer payment plans. So don't be afraid of just the number, because they might have other options for you and that kind of thing.
That's cool. And I think that, when you're out there and you're wanting to maybe redesign your website or get a brand new website designed by someone like Jess, or someone that you meet at a networking event or a conference, it's really important, I think, to be able to have these questions, be able to go in, again, not that that's your expertise of web design, but be able to ask some solid questions so you then can be able to say, is this a good business decision with my marketing dollars to spend
Mm-hmm.
towards being able to have this professional looking first impression opportunity on the World Wide Web for more people to be able to come and to see us. So I really appreciate all of these tips that you've shared. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of this can be really practical that we can put into play the next time that we're having a conversation. So if you're on the radar right now for looking, this might seem super relevant. And if you say, hey, I'm not going to be hiring one for this right now, but it's something that I'm looking forward to doing, you can always come back and re-listen to today's episode. Before we finish up, I know that you, Jess, are a woman of faith. And so I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
ask you, just as a believer, what has it looked like in your business as you've operated and been this entrepreneur? And I guess the main question I'm asking is, how is your faith impacting how you're choosing to show up or grow, or just the vision that you've got for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that my faith has given me and impacted my business is I show up to serve. So like I give away a lot of information on social media, my YouTube channel and my podcast. And a lot of people are like, and even with my clients, because one of the things I do is I teach my clients how to manage their website. And I've had so many people over the years who are like, but you are like working yourself out of a job, because those clients could come back to you for updates, which would be like more income. And I'm like, yeah, but like, that's not serving them though, because then they are like chained to me or chained to some web designer or a virtual assistant that they have to pay to make those updates instead of being empowered to do it themselves. I think the other thing that I have seen a lot of is I'm very type A. I like to plan. I like to, be very organized. And often I am like, oh, I'm at point A and I really want to figure out point M or point Z in the alphabet. And I have to often tell myself that like, I just need to focus on point A right now and trust that God will give me the wisdom and the resources and the know-how when I get to point M. Like, I don't need to figure it out right now. I can trust God that He will help me when I get there. That's one of the biggest things I have to remind myself of often. Just
good.
because like I said, I'm a big over planner and I like to know things ahead of time, but I have to remind myself that like He goes before me and He already knows what's going to happen at point M and point Z and everything like that. So
awesome. I love it. Embracing the journey, embracing what's right in front of you, serving like crazy, and just kind of enjoying the process along the way. That's cool.
Yeah.
So Jess, I want people to be able to come and find you. So take a minute, tell everybody where you love to hang out online and tell them where they could come to connect with you.
Yeah. So my website is jesscreatives.com. I'm on a lot of different social media, but I'm most active on Instagram at Jess Creatives. And I have a free workshop if you're interested, you want to learn more about websites and need help. Totally free. It's like less than 30 minutes, so it's not going to take up a ton of your time. You can just go to jesscreatives.com/workshop to watch that.
Awesome. And tell everybody the name of your podcast.
It's called The Digital Lounge.
Very cool.
And I talk about marketing and online business and websites and all the tech nerdy stuff over there.
That's cool. So guys, we want to make this super easy for you to be able to get connected to Jess, for you to be able to consume more of our podcast if you're a new listener. So if you want to head to our show notes, we will have a link to her podcast, to her Instagram, to her website, all those things. So make sure you head to sweettsocialmarketing.com/episode 173. And you can get all of that and stay connected with Jess. So Jess, you're new here on the podcast, which means you may not know, but we end every single podcast episode with our rapid fire questions. These questions are simple. You just say the very first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
London or Vancouver?
London.
Favorite productivity tool?
I don't use any. I'm a weird type A person. I don't use any, like, I don't use Asana or Trello. I know. Okay. I'm like breaking the internet.
Okay. Next question. One person that you would tell thanks for helping you in the last 5 years get where you are in your career?
My husband.
Very cool. And tell us one thing you enjoy doing when you are not working.
Hiking. I love to hike.
Awesome. Awesome. I feel like we know you a little bit better. Thank you so much, Jess, for being here on the Business Jesus Sweet Tea podcast.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, take care, be blessed, go out there, take action, because like we like to tell you, just consuming all this information will not do a single thing to grow your business. You have to learn, take it in, and go and implement. So take action, be bold, show up on social media, show up online with an awesome website, and be better off for having shown up here in our place here on the World Wide Web, whether you're listening to the podcast or you're watching this on YouTube. You guys take care.